So, all right. Always have a few preliminaries. I had decided to spend a little bit more time, or actually a lot more time, on reinforcement learning instead of moving on to edge computing. We'll do edge computing mostly. That'll be looking at the ROS, Robot Operating System um, uh, framework next week. And I think that'll be really interesting. And I'll talk about some of my own experiences on deploying things to the edge like this, and some of the challenges and pitfalls, that type of thing. But I thought that been trying to figure out the best way of being able to go kind of sufficiently deep in this course during lectures. It's a little challenging since we're remote, and it's also challenging because we have, it's a cross-listed course with both undergrads and graduate students and that type of thing. So, and as I've said, we're covering a huge amount of ground, right? So you could definitely do the computer vision, neural net type stuff as an entire course. You can do the reinforcement learning as an entire course. We're trying to squeeze these into 1 or 2 lectures. So just trying to figure out what is the best experience for you guys. And I think what we'll do is we'll hopefully spend some time on some Python code and some reinforcement learning examples. Now, we could have spent more time with some of the object detection type stuff, and we did a little bit, but not a ton of hands-on time. But I think that a lot of what you'll see here kind of relates. I'll be using Keras in a couple of these, or at least one of these situations, and just lots of Python programming. So hopefully that will be meaningful to you. I'm going to do a lot of review. Basically, I'm going to start back at the beginning of the reinforcement learning lecture, which we started in the second half last week. And it's going to be repetitive. I've been looking at reinforcement learning for many years, working with it, and I find when I step away from it for a little bit, it still takes me a long time to get back going with it. And maybe that's just my thick head, but I think it's a topic that maybe, especially if you're coming from an electrical engineering background, you may not be real well equipped to absorb this and then really internalize this information. So if you're coming from a computer science background, maybe you've studied Markov decision processes before and dynamic programming and that type of thing, maybe this comes easy to you, but it doesn't to me. So I think it's worth repeating. And so that's the plan for today. I've gone through your project reviews. I downloaded those a couple of days ago and went through them, I guess, on Monday. And there was still a lot that hadn't turned those in. So please do that. That's for your benefit. I'm not grading it, so don't worry about being too polished. I had a good discussion earlier on how to tackle some things, and I've had some other conversations prior. So I want to be able to share my experience and my knowledge with you. So please take advantage of that. And I will circle back. I'm still a little concerned. I looked on Monday and I was wanting to grade do the final grading of the radar thing, and still several people haven't turned that in. So basically I'm going to grade that in a few days. And if you don't have that in, I'm just going to give you a 0 on it. So trying to be flexible about due dates, but I can't let it just go, right? Or we're going to be going crazy in the last few weeks of the semester. Um, so that's where we're at. We'll talk about reinforcement learning today, and then edge computing, the ROS robot operating system next week, and that's a very large topic in and of itself. So that will take some time, and then we will spend the last few lectures of the course talking about maybe doing some review. Might be able to go back and kind of fill in some gaps if there's something that you think, hey, we didn't cover that very deeply, or we did but it went all over my head. Then yeah, let me know, and we'll maybe be able to circle back and try to pick some of those things up. And then finally, we'll look at several issues associated with other types of autonomous vehicles beyond the robo-taxi type of thing that we're mostly focused on here, the unmanned autonomous vehicle driving on streets and the highways, right? That's been most of the focus of this course. But there's a lot of other type of autonomous vehicles, and I'd like to touch on those a little bit. And then we'll talk a little bit about the current research, pending problems, and that type of thing. But probably just handle that very briefly since you're doing a lot of research reviews as is. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so the other thing is I have I broke down and bought a new Mac because my old Microsoft Surface is really on its last legs. Might not have, go to system preferences. So I might need to figure out how to grant a bunch of permissions here. I'm doing that right now here. So, all right. Okay, it's saying that I'm not able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit. Well, that's a shame. Let's see if I can maybe stop recording